Good morning, Mandela. How is everyone doing this fine morning today? Let's roll ourselves into CAD Basics number 2 here. This is going to be a quick video. This one actually is a cool project, but it's one that is relatively simple because, I'm just going to pull it up on screen here so you can see it. It is one that's actually relatively simple because at this point, after doing CAD Basics number 1, you have most of the tools you need to actually finish this one. This one's relatively simple. Now, when we look at the drawing initially, we can identify that we have coordinate points to draw this rectangle at the top already. We have coordinate points to draw this square at the bottom. We have coordinate points to draw most of this little double triangle shape down here. So we're kind of well on our way. That's probably not a bad place to start. If we hop open into CAD here, set up some layers very quickly, just like we would in a normal drawing, we can actually get started on this really quickly here and actually get some stuff sorted. Now, I'm not going to go through the presentation piece, so if you want to know how to turn this into a PDF and a layout, you'll have to go to the last video. I'm simply going to worry about the drawing tools at this point, but we are going to worry about those drawing tools specifically. Now, I am going to pop over to a window that I've opened. I'm going to throw this over to my second screen, so if anybody's wondering what's going on with the measurements, it's that I'm looking at them on a different monitor over here while we do the CAD on this monitor here. Alright, let's get this party started. Obviously, we start with the rectangle, which goes from 0, 0 to 10, 7. That gives us a good space here to get started. We might even go as far as to put the dimensions on this thing while we work through it. Okay, let's toss this dimension on here. And for some of you in the last video, I can't remember if I put it in there, we might want to modify the precision level on this by selecting both of these, right-clicking on them, and pressing precision 0. So we get one decimal place and kind of get what we want. Now I'm just going to quickly draw all of the things that I know that I have an existing coordinate point for on the on this drawing, which is this square here, and obviously I drew the side of that wrong. I'm going to see if I can change the side in the properties menu. I indeed cannot. Okay, that's interesting. Let's delete that and try that again. I'll just draw the rectangle. We'll start it again at 2, 1.5 like the drawing suggests, and 2.5, 2.5. There we go. Okay, I've got a couple of the shapes that we're going to throw in here. We're going to throw a rectangle at the top. It is 4.5, 6.5 to start, and it's kind of funny because this one goes to the right and down, which means that when I actually give this width and height, I actually have to give it, I can give it the normal width because we're going to the right, but when I go to the height, I actually have to give it a negative number. Now the negative number is going to mean that this is actually going to drive this downwards. There we go, -1. There we go. Okay, now it's moved it, wow, it's moved it an absolute coordinate to -1. I haven't seen that one before. Let's just type this in and see what happens. There we go. It went down 1 unit because y direction and negative is actually down instead of going up. Now, the other thing that we know about is that we got a line on the right-hand side here, and I will draw it as we normally would see it. Here we go, and it is 4 units tall. It's not actually written on the drawing that it's 4 units tall, but it says that it's 2 units tall to its midpoint in the middle. Now, we've got some really easy things to do. We can actually clean up this drawing really easily. We can see that it has a line at the top that is 2 units along, and now it leads us to our very first tool that we're going to use here. And it's called the midpoint snap. If everyone floats down to their little menu down at the bottom here, you'll notice that you don't have midpoint or geometric center checked off. You have lots of options for things that can snap here. Perpendiculars, you can add different pieces of different shapes. I like to leave the defaults plus geometric center and midpoint. For the basics assignments, those are usually the best. If you also want to access this, you can also type in OSnap, object snap, into your keyboard, and you get something that looks vaguely like this, and again, you can check off those things on the menu. Now, the midpoints are going to actually let us do something really cool here, because we can finish off this particular triangle. Now, the other thing that we did in the last drawing is we did use a polar coordinate, and this one's kind of cool because it wants to draw this line with a 27-degree angle to vertical, so 27 degrees here. But you'll notice that in your measurement, it measures from horizontal. It measures from 3 o'clock on the clock. So we actually have to do some math here when we do this one. So on this one, we end up getting 27. We end up getting 63 as our angle. That's 90 minus 27. And I'm just going to draw this line a little longer than I need it. Let me show you why in a second. What's going to happen is I'm going to draw my second line straight across to where those two intersect, again, using my snap lines. Life is good here, but I got this little dangly bit on the end that's not really helping me that much. So I'm going to type in trim, and trim is going to let me actually cut stuff off. After typing in trim, I'm going to press enter. The trim command is going to allow us to actually cut off the end of that line to make a nice finished product here. Now, the nice thing with this one, I'm not going to dimension this one. You do need to use leaders for this, for the for the coordinate point in the bottom corner, as well as to the midpoint on both of these. Those are text, so that's kind of how they work. Now, the other big snap line that we have to do here is we've actually got this rectangle in the top snapping to the midpoint of things here. You'll notice that the midpoint snap is a small triangle. If you're never not sure what your snap icons look like, pull open your actual menu down here, and they'll actually start to show up. Oops, sorry, I should say the object snap menu. You can actually see what all of the symbols in your drawing are going to mean as you're snapping to things. So endpoints are squares, midpoints are triangles, etc., etc. Now, the other one that really gets students on this particular project is the ability to put a circle on this. And in the drawing, we've noted that the circle has a radius that snaps to the corners. And being a circle, the only way to do that properly is to have a circle that starts at the geometric center of this square. So we'll go back to our drawing. I'm going to float around the outside of the square, and you'll notice this little dot showed up in the middle. That's the geometric center of that object. And I'm just going to simply drag it to an endpoint of the end of the square, and you're going to notice when I click here that my circle now aligns itself with all of the corners. Life is good. We've done this one. Nice and easy. The last thing that's on this drawing that's a bit weird and wacky is that there are some little squares to represent the 90-degree angles, and I'm just going to zoom in on one of my corners. Okay, these are, again, simple as they can be, are just a square drawn in the dimensioning layer. So I'm actually going to draw these as, and I think the number is 0.15 by 0.15 on these ones. And so we're going to get a square that looks something like this. Now, I'm going to be super lazy on this one, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways of actually putting these into the corners, because there's actually a couple different ways. I'm going to use the copy command for this one, because copy seems to make sense, and I'm going to select a base point that is the top left corner. And that means I'm going to be able to drag this up here. Okay, I'm also going to copy 4 more of these just into space, because I'm going to need 4 of them, and I'm going to very easily move them. How I'm going to do that is with the actual move command. When I type in move and press enter, I'm now going to be able to select another base point. In this case, I'm going to click the top right of this one, and I'm going to put it up on top here. Okay, I'm going to click the next square, and I'm going to press the enter key on my keyboard. Again, enter is going to give you a space where you can do the last thing you selected. So we can click here, enter to move, select my object, press enter again, specify base point, top corner. Let's move that up there, enter here, select base point, bottom left corner, and off we go. We now have 4 of those things. Now, the one problem that you're going to see here is that those all are over top of the objects they are sitting against. So I'm just really quickly going to select those objects, and we're going to change our draw order, and I'm going to show you what this does. I'm going to zoom in on this one. When we right click, we can change our draw order, and we can bring all of those drawn lines to the front, and you'll notice that now that line for that square, the major square, is in front of the angle, it's in front of the square here, and that's kind of how we wanted this to show up. At this point, everything else is dimensioning and exporting, which you should already know from the past video, and I think that this will probably get you started on CAD Basics 02. Good luck and happy CADing.